The truth is, it's always been right in front of you. Beneath the frantic hum of modern life, there lies a silent, predatory energy that consumes the human spirit, the desperate, soul-crushing need to control the behavior, opinions, and choices of those around us. Most people walk through their days as the exhausted architect, trying to build a fortress of self-worth out of the shifting sands of other people's approval. They believe that if they can just explain themselves enough, if they can just perform perfectly enough, or if they can just manipulate the circumstances with enough precision, they can finally secure peace they crave. But this is the ultimate delusion of the ego. It is a psychological prison where the keys are held by everyone except the prisoner. This is where the struggle begins, in the agonizing gap between how the world is acting and how we think it should be acting. We spend our vital life force trying to bridge this gap, unaware that the bridge itself is made of shadows. Into this theater of emotional friction comes a radical, almost terrifyingly simple revelation that strips the ego of its armor and returns the soul to its rightful throne. It is a frequency of absolute sovereignty known as the let them theory. Imagine a soul standing in the center of a social storm. They have just discovered that their inner circle has gathered for an event, a celebration, or a simple evening of connection, and they were purposefully excluded. The silence of the phone becomes a deafening roar. In this moment, the shadow of the rejected takes hold. The heart rate accelerates, the chest tightens, and the mind begins a frantic, high-speed rehearsal of grievances. The ego demands a reaction. It wants to text, to confront, to beg for an explanation, or to spiral into a narrative of unworthiness. This is the archetype of the puppeteer of perception, the part of us that believes it must pull the strings of others to feel safe. The puppeteer is terrified of the void, terrified of being less than in the eyes of the group. It is a visceral, tectonic shift in the nervous system that feels like a matter of life and death because, to the primal brain, exclusion is a death sentence. But then, a voice of profound, crystalline clarity emerges from the depths of the observing self. It does not scream, it does not plead. It simply offers 3 words that act as a psychic circuit breaker. Let them exclude you. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand your intentions. Let them make their choices without your interference. In the sudden, shocking stillness that follows these words, something miraculous begins to happen. The energy that was being projected outward, like 1,000 fraying wires seeking a ground, suddenly snaps back into the center of the being. This is the moment of alchemical transmutation. The individual is no longer a reflector of the world's chaos, they are becoming the source of their own stability. They realize that by trying to control the guest list of someone else's life, they have been neglecting the sanctuary of their own. The let them theory is not a philosophy of passivity, it is a declaration of emotional independence. It acknowledges that everyone is a sovereign character in their own divine drama, and your attempt to edit their script is not only futile but an act of self-betrayal. You are taking back the psychic gold you have been throwing into a bottomless pit of external expectation. Analyzing this phenomenon through a psychological lens reveals that the need for control is a sophisticated mask for fear. When we demand that people act according to our internal maps, we are essentially at war with reality. This creates a state of chronic hypervigilance, where the nervous system is perpetually scanning for threats to the ego's status. The let them theory operates as an intervention in the amygdala hijack. By allowing others to be exactly who they are, however flawed, however distant, however unappreciative, you are finally honoring the locus of control within yourself. You are moving from reaction to response. This detachment is not cold or indifferent, it is sacred respect. It respects the journey of the other person while fiercely protecting the sanctity of your own energy. It is the realization that your worth is a fixed constant, independent of the variables of human fickle nature. When you let them, you are finally stopping the tug-of-war that has been exhausting your spirit. You are letting go of the rope and realizing that you were never actually in a fight with them, but with your own refusal to accept what is. This leads us to the archetype of the gilded pleaser, the one who believes that if they can just be enough, they can prevent the pain of rejection. This character spends their life in a state of proactive manipulation, trying to manage everyone's mood to ensure their own safety. They are the atlas of opinions, carrying the weight of the world's perception on their shoulders until their spine begins to crack. But the let them theory forces a confrontation with the void. If someone is going to be disappointed in you because you set a boundary, let them. If someone is going to walk away because you no longer fit the mold they created for you, let them. This is the alchemical fire that burns away the dross of the false self. You begin to see that most of your relationships were held together by the glue of your own effort to manage their perception. When you stop managing, the house of cards falls, and what remains is the bedrock of authentic connection. You are no longer performing a role, you are finally inhabiting your own skin. The exhaustion of the architect is replaced by the stillness of the mountain. The mountain does not move because the weather is bad, the mountain simply lets the weather happen. The lessons embedded in this radical neutrality are essential for the individuation process. Resistance is the primary source of human suffering. When we fight against the choices of the other, we are essentially trying to command the ocean. We believe that our agony is a form of leverage, that if we hurt enough or complain enough, the world will change its course. But the ocean does not care about your agony, the ocean simply is. By letting them, you are finally learning to swim. You are aligning your will with the current of reality. This is the secret of the Tao. The action through non-action. It is the understanding that the most impactful thing you can do in any situation is to maintain your own center. When you are unmoved by the whims of the world begins to orient itself around you. You are no longer a victim of circumstance, you are the sovereign of your own interiority. This is the power that the ancients spoke of, the inner king who remains serene while the barbarians at the gate shout their insults. You realize that the gate is already closed, and you are the only one with the key. Consider the striving performer in the professional arena. A figure who believes that their value is a direct calculation of their visibility and accolades. They live in a state of perpetual evaluation anxiety, auditing the room for the subtle shifts in favor. When they see a promotion handed to a peer who has played the game of shadows better than they have, or when they receive a piece of criticism that feels like a personal attack, the reflex is one of psychic inflammation. They want to defend, to over-explain, to work twice as hard to prove the critics wrong. But the let them theory introduces an almost offensive level of stillness. If they are going to overlook your brilliance, let them. If they are going to misinterpret your silence as incompetence, let them. This is the moment where the hero stops trying to win the approval of the corrupt king and realizes that the true kingdom is within. By refusing to engage in the war of perception, you have effectively won it. The person who does not care to be understood is the most powerful person in the room, psychologically. This shift marks the transition from external validation to internal integration. We are often energy leaks, losing vast quantities of our vital libido to things that are fundamentally outside our vibration. When you ruminate on a slight, or when you rehearse an argument in the shower, you are hemorrhaging your alchemical gold into a void. This leads to the archetype of the burned-out rescuer, the individual who has given so much of themselves to the management of others' perceptions that they have nothing left for their own great work. The let them theory is a psychic tourniquet. It stops the bleeding. It forces the energy back into the Athen, the furnace of the self, where it can be used for creation rather than defense. You are learning that to become a whole self, you must be willing to be a villain in someone else's story. You must accept that their misunderstanding is a sign of their own limitation, not a report on your reality. This detachment is not a coldness, it is a boundaried love that respects the path of the other while fiercely protecting the sanctity of the self. It is particularly potent when the vibrational match of a friendship begins to dissolve. You sense a friend pulling away, their texts growing shorter, their invitations becoming non-existent. The ego views this as a mortal threat, a rejection that triggers the ancient fear of being cast out. You want to chase, to ask what did I do? To fix the fracture before it becomes a chasm. But the theory demands a stoic surrender. If they are going to drift away, let them. This is the alchemical separation of the wheat from the chaff. You are realizing that many of your connections were based on a contract of mutual management. When you stop the management, you see who truly stands beside you. By letting them leave, you are making energetic space for those who can meet you in your authenticity. You are trusting the tide of the soul. knowing that what is meant for you cannot be lost, and what is lost was never truly yours. The narrative of our lives is often cluttered with the debris of the unsaid, the explanations we feel we owe, the defenses we build against slights, and the constant mental rehearsal of arguments to prove our point. This clutter is a form of psychic friction that prevents the flow of abundance. When you adopt the let them frequency, the clutter disappears. There is a psychological minimalism that takes hold. You no longer feel the need to be the public relations manager of your own life. You realize that people will think what they will think, and their opinion of you is a projection of their own shadow. This detachment is the secret of the alchemist. You are turning the lead of social anxiety into the gold of self-possession. You are standing in the center of your own life, unmoved by the whims of the herd. The sheep may bleat, the dogs may bark, but the caravan of your destiny moves on. This is the empowerment that comes from the void. By wanting nothing from them, no approval, no agreement, no apology, you finally have everything. You have your own self, intact and unfragmented. The internal war of the ego often reaches its most feverish pitch within the sacred, tangled corridors of our most intimate bonds, where the shadow of the Savior looms large over the landscape of the heart. Within the dynamic of the family or the romantic partnership, there exists the pervasive archetype of the hypervigilant guardian, a character who believes that their primary function is to prevent the chaos of the other from ever occurring. They watch their children make choices they perceive as reckless, or they witness their partner drifting into a state of apathy or destructive behavior, and immediately, the psychic alarm begins to wail. To this guardian, love is synonymous with management. They believe that if they can just provide the right advice, exert the right pressure, or manipulate the circumstances with enough desperation, they can save those they love from the pain of the desert. But the let them theory suggests that this interference is a sophisticated form of spiritual arrogance. It is the ego's refusal to trust the divine timing of another person's evolution. When you step into the role of the eternal rescuer, you are essentially stealing the other person's necessary thirst. You are preventing them from reaching the oasis of their own revelation because you are too afraid to let them experience the heat of the sun. This is the moment of the hardest surrender. You look at someone you love walking toward a cliff of their own making, and the let them frequency demands that you drop the rope of your own intervention. If they are going to fail, let them. If they are going to ignore the wisdom you have so painstakingly accumulated, let them. If they are going to break their own heart to find their own soul, let them. In this agonizing stillness, the guardian must face their own mirror of fear. They realize that their desperate need to fix the other was actually a desperate need to avoid the feelings of helplessness within themselves. By letting them, you are finally acknowledging the sovereignty of their path. You are realizing that their personal legend may require a detour through the darkness that you have no right to illuminate for them. This is the transition from enabling love which seeks to dull the edges of reality, to empowering love which trusts reality to be the ultimate teacher. You are finally returning the weight of responsibility to its rightful owner, and in doing so, you are liberating your own spirit from the manacles of their choices. Analyzing the psychological fallout of this shift reveals a profound recalibration of the nervous system. When we operate as the rescuer, our internal state is perpetually enmeshed with the state of the other. Our joy is contingent on their success, our peace is hostage to their stability. This is a state of chronic emotional fragility. The let them theory acts as an energetic separation, a psychic boundary that allows for interdependence rather than codependence. It recognizes that you can only truly meet another person when you are standing firmly on your own ground. By practicing radical non-interference, you are signaling to your own subconscious that you are safe regardless of the outcome of their drama. You are hushing the primal panic of the ego and inviting the serenity of the observer. This is the development of a differentiated self, the one who can witness the storm without becoming the storm. The relief that follows is visceral. It is the feeling of 1,000 pounds of external expectation falling away from your shoulders, leaving you with the lightness of being that is your natural state. As this frequency settles into the marrow of the being, we encounter the archetype of the chronic explainer, the one who believes that if they can just find the perfect sequence of words, they can control how they are perceived by the world. This character lives in a state of narrative anxiety. constantly editing the public version of their life to prevent the shadow of judgment. They fear being the villain in anyone's story. When they are misunderstood, when they are gossiped about, or when their boundaries are interpreted as coldness, the reflex is to launch a campaign of clarification. They want to hold a press conference for their own reputation. But the let them theory introduces the power of the silent presence. If they are going to believe the lie about you, let them. If they are going to paint you as the antagonist to justify their own victimhood, let them. This is the alchemical nigredo of the reputation. You are allowing the public image to be incinerated so that the private truth can shine. You are realizing that your character is what you are in the dark, while your reputation is merely the distorted shadow cast on the wall of the other person's mind. The psychological empowerment found in this refusal to defend is staggering. Most people spend their lives as debtors to opinion, forever trying to pay off the interest of approval. When you let them think what they will, you have effectively declared psychic bankruptcy. You are no longer liable for their perception. This creates a vacuum of validation that forces you to provide your own internal authority. You become the king or queen of your own interiority, realizing that the opinion of the herd is a paper tiger that only has the power to bite if you provide the teeth. The exhaustion of the performer is replaced by the gravitas of the sovereign. You no longer look for yourself in the eyes of the other, you find yourself in the stillness of the breath. This is the gnosis of self-possession, where you are finally unfuckwithable because you have nothing left to hide and nothing left to prove. You have accepted the messiness of the human condition and have found the gold in the authentic self. Consider the striving victim. That archetypal figure who believes that their suffering is a form of currency that they can trade for attention or change. They believe that if they can just show the world how much they have been wronged, the world will finally compensate them. They are trapped in a cycle of ruminative grievance, forever replaying the movie of the slight. The let them theory is a sword of clarity that cuts the chains of the past. If the person who hurt you is never going to apologize, let them. If the universe is never going to provide the justice you envisioned, let them. By letting the grievance go, you are not saying that the action was right, you are saying that your future is too valuable to be chained to the corpse of the past. You are letting the ghost of the perpetrator be exactly who they are, a person capable of that action, and in doing so, you are exorcising them from your psychic space. You are no longer waiting for a resolution to begin your life. You are initiating the resolution through the power of your own indifference. This leads us to the archetype of the corporate warrior, the one who believes that control is the only path to safety in the hierarchy. This character is a master of the micromanagement, trying to ensure that every variable is accounted for to prevent the chaos of failure. They view their colleagues and subordinates as extensions of their own will, rather than sovereign entities. The let them theory in the workplace is the ultimate leadership alchemy. It allows for the sacred error. If the team is going to miss the mark, let them. If the project is going to reveal the incompetence of the structure, let them. This is the release of the burden of omnipotence. You are realizing that you cannot be the sustainer of the universe. By letting the chaos occur, you are finally seeing the truth of the system. You are discovering who is capable, who is hiding, and where the foundation is cracked. The energy you save from micromanaging the inevitable can now be redirected toward visionary creation. You are moving from the manager of minutiae to the architect of possibility. Analyze the vibrational shift that occurs when a leader or a professional adopts the let them frequency. In the old paradigm, strength was seen as force, the ability to bend the world to one's will. In the let them paradigm, strength is seen as containment, the ability to hold the space for whatever is arising. This is the mastery of the Athanor. You are the vessel in which the transformation happens, not the fire that forces the change. This creates a culture of psychological safety, where the shadow is no longer hidden but integrated. People begin to perform at a higher level not because they are controlled, but because they are trusted. The let them theory creates a resonance of autonomy that attracts high-value collaborators and repels energy vampires. You are no longer buying compliance with your anxiety, you are inspiring excellence with your peace. You have become the still point around which the organization evolves. The let them theory also addresses the archetype of the self-critic, that internal voice of judgment that constantly audits our progress and worth. We try to control our own growth, forcing ourselves into molds of improvement that are actually just subtle forms of self-punishment. We believe that if we are not constant critics of our own flaws, we will never arrive. The theory applied inwardly is the final transmutation of self-love. When the internal critic begins its diatribe, instead of resisting it or trying to positive think it away, you simply let it. Let the shadow speak. Let the fear arise. Let the part of you that feels small have its moment. By letting the internal noise happen without identifying with it, you are creating the space of the great observer. You are no longer the critic or the victim, you are the vast sky in which the clouds of thought are passing. This is the end of the internal civil war. You are finally letting yourself be exactly who you are in this now. And in that allowance, the true transformation begins to flow. This internal allowance leads to the archetype of the radiant being, the one who has stopped the war with reality and has started the dance with the divine. This character no longer tries to be good or tries to be successful, they simply are. Their presence is a catalyst for others because it is uncontaminated by agendas. When you let the world be, the world feels safe in your presence. You are no longer seeking to change anyone. And therefore, everyone is free to change in your light. This is the paradox of the alchemist. By wanting nothing, you influence everything. You are the master of the language without words. Where your frequency does the work that your will never could. You have moved beyond the need for explanation and into the state of revelation. You see the signs in everything because you are no longer projecting your own noise onto the canvas of the universe. You are the mirror that reflects the soul of the world without distortion. The let them theory is the sacred divorce from the opinions of the collective. It is the exodus from the land of should. Most people are slaves to the social narrative, forever checking the internal compass of what will they think before they take a step. When you let them think, you are finally walking on your own feet. You are no longer a puppet of the zeitgeist. This is the sovereignty that allows for original thought and authentic action. You are no longer voting on your own life, you are dictating it from the throne of your own heart. The exhaustion of the herd is replaced by the vitality of the lone wolf who knows the path to the higher peaks. You are no longer afraid of the darkness of being alone because you have found the internal light that never flickers. You have let the world go. And in the void that remains, you have found the all. You are the still point, the master of the let, and the architect of the now. The final transition of the let them frequency moves from the interpersonal to the cosmic, where the seeker realizes that the universe itself is the ultimate let. We have spent our lives in a state of ontological arrogance, believing that we are the essential managers of reality, convinced that our anxiety is a necessary tax we pay for the world's continued existence. We believe that if we stop worrying, if we stop controlling, the very fabric of our lives will unravel into a chaotic void. But this is the final, most seductive illusion of the ego. When you apply the let them theory to the grand narrative of existence, you are entering the state of Tao. You are allowing the great flow to move through you without the friction of your judgment. You are finally letting the stars shine without trying to rearrange their constellations to fit your narrow map of how things should be. You are realizing that the perceived chaos of the world is actually a higher order that your limited intellect simply cannot perceive. This is the apotheosis of the sovereign, the moment where you stop being the protester of fate and start being the witness of providence. You look at the decay and the beauty of the human condition, and you simply let it be. This is not a state of apathy, but a state of profound, resonant presence. You are no longer fighting the now to reach a better later. You have found the gold in the impermanence of the present moment. In this psychological climax, the individual undergoes the heroic rebirth. The controller has died, and the free soul has been born. This is the stage of the great release, where the energy previously tied up in managing external perceptions is reclaimed for the grand work of inner peace. You are finally experiencing the detachment from the search, realizing that the external validation you were chasing was merely a shadow of the self-acceptance you were denying yourself. This is the individuation that Jung spoke of, the state where the self is finally integrated, unshakable, and whole. You look at the people who have excluded you, the critics who have judged you, and the circumstances that have challenged you, and you feel a sense of overwhelming gratitude. They were the alchemical agents of your awakening. By being exactly who they were, uncooperative, unkind, or indifferent, they forced you to look within for the source of your own worth. They were the thieves at the pyramids who pointed you back to the treasure under your own sycamore tree. When you let them, you are finally thanking them for the gift of your own sovereignty. This leads to the psychology of inner peace, a state where the internal conflict has been replaced by internal coherence. The let them theory has acted as the universal solvent, dissolving the lead of resentment and leaving only the gold of freedom. You are no longer a victim of the world, but a partner in its evolution. You realize that your peace is not a fragile thing that must be protected by walls and defenses, it is a radiant light that emanates from the core of your being. It is the philosopher's stone of the psyche. You move through the world with a weightless gravity, influencing everything around you precisely because you no longer seek to influence anything. This is the paradox of mastery. When you truly let go, you finally possess your own life. You are no longer looking for signs, you have become the sign. You are no longer asking for permission, you are the authority. The exhaustion of the struggle is replaced by the vitality of the now. You are finally home. And the home is the stillness of your own heart. As the soul settles into this apotheosis of indifference, it discovers the archetype of the transcendent witness. This is the part of the psyche that remains untouched by the dramas of the ego. The silent observer who watches the movie of life without getting lost in the plot. From this perspective, the let them theory is revealed as the sacred key to the kingdom of grace. You are no longer identified with the small I that is constantly hurt, offended, or ignored. You are identified with the big self that is vast, eternal, and intrinsically worthy. This shift is the final alchemical transmutation. The shadow has been integrated. The anima has been honored. And the ego has been humbled. You are finally transparent to the light of the divine. The world can no longer get a grip on you because you have let go of the grip you had on the world. You are the wind that moves through the world, touching everything but holding nothing. This is the absolute freedom of the let them frequency also heals the ancestral trauma of unworthiness. We carry the echoes of our ancestors who had to fight for survival, who had to please the tribe to stay alive, and who lived in constant fear of exclusion. By practicing radical acceptance, we are breaking the chains of the past. We are saying to our lineage that the war is over. We are no longer performers of compliance. We are sovereigns of awareness. This healing ripple moves backward through time and forward into the future. By letting them today, you are ensuring that the generations to come will know that their worth is a given, not a goal. You are creating a new archetype for the collective, the sovereign individual who is self-sourced and internally defined. This is the grand work of the modern era, the reclamation of the human spirit from the industrialization of approval. You are the architect of this new reality. Analyzing the ultimate message of the book reveals a provocative demand for total individual responsibility. It posits that the universe is not an indifferent machine, but a living entity that responds to the intensity of our inner stillness. The let them theory is a manual for internal alchemy, teaching that the only way to win the game is to leave the board. It asserts that your peace is a sacred territory that you have accidentally ceded to the enemy of expectation. The core meaning is that you must take back your psychic land. You must realize that you are not the manager of others, but the king of the self. The book intends to convey that freedom is not something you find at the end of a journey, it is the quality with which you begin. It is the realization that letting them is not a loss of control, but a discovery of true power. It is the end of the war and the beginning of the life. This realization leads to a profound detachment from external validation. A state where the signs of success are no longer accolades or money, but calmness and clarity. You realize that the most successful person is not the one with the most followers, but the one with the most peace. This is the inversion of the world's values. You are finally rich because you want nothing from the world. You have found the source within, and therefore, the marketplace has no leverage over you. This is the redemption of the spirit from the lead of social comparison. You are Santiago returning to the ruined church, digging under the tree of your own awareness and finding the gold that was there the whole time. You are the alchemist who has finally realized that the tincture is acceptance. As this summary reaches its climax, the soul of the world begins to sing through the silence of your own letting. You are no longer seeking the personal legend, you are being the legend. Every moment is a miracle of allowance. Every interaction is a lesson in neutrality. Every slight is a blessing of sovereignty. You have let go of the rope of resistance and have found that you can fly. You are the still point in the turning world. The drama continues. The chaos swirls. And the sheep continue to bleat. But you are the mountain. You have let the world go. And in return, you have found yourself. This is the grace of the let. You are reborn into a world where everything is allowed and nothing is required. You are free. The core message of the let them theory is a radical invitation to reclaim your emotional sovereignty by refusing to participate in the futile war of controlling others. It is a philosophy of psychological liberation that teaches that your peace is an internal state that must never be bartered for external validation or temporary compliance. By allowing others to make their own choices, hold their own opinions, and experience their own consequences, you are finally honoring the divine autonomy of the human spirit, both theirs and your own. The book reveals that the source of all anxiety is the ego's refusal to accept reality. And the source of all power is the soul's capacity to say let them. It is a return to the essential self. The one who is whole, intact, and fundamentally unshakable by the whims of the world. In the end, you realize that the world was never trying to hold you back, you were trying to hold on to a world that was always meant to be free. By letting others be exactly who they are, you have finally given yourself permission to be exactly who you were meant to be. The great work is finished. The lead has turned to gold, and the sovereign has taken the throne. There is no longer a need to speak, for your presence has become the language of the world. You are the stillness that holds the storm. You are the silence that contains the song. You have let them have the noise, and in the void that remains, you have found the all. Your soul was never meant to be a prison for the expectations of others. It was meant to be the sky in which you finally learn to fly.